Hey gang, Patrick King here, coming to you live from Misty Oaks Farm in Stanton, Virginia. So if you've seen me at clinics recently, the last year or so, you've seen me using, I keep joking and calling it my magic wand, this telescopic rod that I use to help get a lot more balance and relaxation with the horses when I'm lunging them. And there's been a lot of people recently through our web shop purchasing these and asking us a little bit more about how to use them. So we thought we'd make this little video for you here. Whether you're using this or not, we're going to show you a little bit more about helping to lunge your horses or work them around on the ground with more relaxation, getting a little bit more stretch, getting a lot more balance from them as they're working. And I'll show you what we mean as we get into it. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about using this because they're pretty fragile and it can be easy to break if you're not careful. So the first thing we want to make sure we do is we're going to take off the cap, and I always stick the cap in my pocket while I'm working with it just to keep it safe. You notice I kind of pushed out a little here. We've got a little tassel on the end of this here, a little baggy. So that's going to work as a bit of a flag or a bit of a focus for your horse. Now the way that we're going to extend this, we're not going to just dump it out and let all these pieces fall here, okay, because it's not going to extend properly that way. We're going to take one piece out at a time, and you'll see there's little individual rods or little individual sleeves here, and we're going to take each sleeve to tension as we pull this out. And you notice that I keep control of this here as I go until I've got each piece tensioned, right, until I have it taken out to its full extent. Now, if I were working with a horse the first time with this is going to be something to keep in mind. If your horse might have a tendency to be a little bit worried, I might only let this out just a few inches, maybe the length of a riding crop or something. I'm going to hold here at the handle with my finger to keep all the other pieces from sliding out, and I might spend a little bit of time kind of petting our horse with that to make sure that they're okay with it, to make sure they're not jumpy. That's going to be a good step that you want to make sure that you take care of whenever you're doing this. If I were to just let my hand slide, if this were to slide out to the ground, there's a good chance that it's going to break. So you don't want to go doing that. So when I extend this, like I said, each link gets pulled out to its own tension until I move on to the next set. All right, I think of it like a set of nesting dolls, right? Each doll opens up and there's another piece inside it. So once we've got this put out to the full length, you can see here it's quite long. It's about 12 feet in length. What I really like about this rod, this magic wand, over a normal lunging whip is you can see how straight it stays. You can see how stable it is all the way to the end. So I can get really specific with this. I can reach under and touch my horse maybe on the elbow, or reach back and touch her on top of the tail, things like that. Depending on what I want to do, I can get more specific like that. Now, just as we had to take it out carefully, we're going to bring it back in carefully. So I'll start at the handle, and I'm going to maybe twist. If you've been using it, it might be a little bit sticky, so you might have to twist the pieces here and put one link at a time back in. All right, so we close it up just the exact opposite of the way that we opened it and extended it out. That's something important to think about. If you start way up at the end and then you bring it in, again, you run a risk of breaking it, especially this last little filament here at the end. It's really thin and sensitive. Okay? Keep in mind, this is a precision tool. This is not something to go banging around and doing basic work with your horse on. If your horse is really pushy and things like that, you probably got some homework that you might need to do before you start using this stick. So, speaking of homework before you start using this stick, I'm going to grab a bamboo stick here. I like the use of a bamboo stick. You can use a dressage whip, you can use a training stick, whatever you really want to use. But I want to first talk to my horse. I want to get this idea that my horse can initiate a movement with the hindquarters. Think about in your foundation work how you might typically lunge a horse or put them on a circle. Often the way we do this, and Bunny here can help us show this, often the way we do this is you kind of open that front door and you send a shoulder on through, right? But the challenge with that is that that's not really the way that we want our horses to be moving when we're riding. You don't move the shoulder over forward and then ask them to walk forward or ask them to drive forward, you want the drive to come from the hindquarters. If you want to get your horse to be using his body a little bit more appropriately, that's where I find this stick or the dressage whip, and then specifically this wand whenever we're lunging our horse. That's where I feel like they come in really handy. We can help our horse to drive first from the hindquarters as we ask them to go. So in order for the horse to work properly then with the wand, I like to start here with the stick so that we get that piece understood to begin with. So I'm going to come up here and my cameraman is going to move so that she's at my side here so that you can see how I'm going to ask my horse to walk. Now to begin with, I'm just going to ask her to relax here. She says, I know what we're going to do here. We've played this game before. Now when I want her to move, I'm going to ask her to first move from the hindquarters. You see the length of my stick here. This is what I really like about a bamboo stick, is that you can get them in various lengths. This one about the length of my horse's base body. I can ask her then to step out with this hind leg. There. And I want, specifically when I touch, I want that inside hind leg to be driving underneath the body. I want, as it is, an engagement of the hind leg. What I don't want, and maybe you'll pan out a little bit for this shot, what I don't want to see here is a disengagement of the hind leg. I don't want to see my horse turning and bending and moving this way, where the front end begins to lock and dig a hole in the ground or something like that. That movement, as far as the proper mechanics of your horse, is basically crap. It's not going to get you anything good accomplished as far as balance, relaxation, or any type of throughness with your horse. That disengaging like that is all right in an emergency, in an oh no kind of a control situation, but otherwise we want to think about engaging. I want to think about sending that hind leg forward under the belly but not across. If you watch her, depending on the angle of the camera here, it's as though that inside hind leg starts to step toward the outside shoulder in this fashion. If you watch that hind leg stepping under, not across. Good job. And this, of course, we'll do from both sides, making sure, and again, this horse understands this idea, but I want to make sure this is the first step you would take at home to be sure you can use that wand the best way possible. I'm going to send that hind leg forward, there, under the body. There. And a way that I might start out, if a horse doesn't understand this, as she does, I might start out a little more here, right in front of the nose, and say, hey, you've got to kind of leg yield around me as we go. If needed, I might offer a little support on the halter here and say, hey, step across and through your body. And you see the bend that she puts into her body here, all right? That's going to be important too. I don't want too much bend, but I want her bending, in this case, producing a left bend as she tracks across to the right. Her right, my left. Right, so once we've got that, pretty much we're ready to start using that wand. So I'm going to grab that. Going to take Bunny here out a little farther. I'm going to see if I can position her in a way here that you can see how she's going to work from the hindquarters. I'm going to give a bunch of lead here. And again, carefully extending the wand or the rod. Good girl. Okay, so now when I ask her to move forward, if we look at the way she's standing here, her right hind leg is standing up underneath her body. I'm going to let that be for now. What I would like is for her to be a little bit more square. And working with the balance in this way, it will help her to get a little more square naturally. She's going to get into a position where she's going to start moving and stopping a lot more balanced. When I ask her to go out, I'm going to ask, just like I did with the stick, with the bamboo, I'm going to ask her to move the hind foot first and almost leg yield around me onto a circle. What a lot of horses will do, especially if they've had a lot of work on their foundation, which is good. What a lot of horses are going to do is try to push out through the shoulder first and then go through. And so if she moves with the shoulder first, I'm going to come up onto this opposite side here with the wand and kind of block that shoulder, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say, start with your hindquarters, don't bulge out your shoulder. And you might see me as she goes here, you might see me moving back pretty quick, back and forth. And when you're doing this, you might feel like the conductor of an orchestra, moving your stick all around to kind of communicate with your horse about which part you want to move when. So I'm going to start out here. I like to start from a distance, and I kind of bring it in, and I let her sort of see it, and as I come up here, then tap. I want her to be mindful of it. I'm going to come out here and tap. And again, tap. She says, I kind of like it better when you're just standing there talking. So we see she brought that right hind or left hind leg up underneath her body there. There. She says, all this talking, I thought we were done. Now I'm going to ask her here, there, to step back off of that because, again, as we talked about, she steps first with that shoulder opening out. You see, I draw this in slow, and then I kind of tag her with it. There, a little less shoulder, a little more hiney, please. A little less shoulder, a little more hiney, please. There, as we go out. Now, as she goes out here also, if she were to get into a position of rushing, which we can see, she's probably not going to be rushing today, but if she gets into a position of rushing, I can bring the wand up here in front as a block. Something you might want to also take care of with your horse is playing with this idea of having them back off of the rod. You can see I bring it in slow. I might wave it slow a little and then touch her on the nose. There. I want her to think of it almost as a guardrail going down the highway. It's not something that's supposed to push you. It's something that's a barrier for how far you can go. There. If the barrier comes in close, she needs to step back off of it. There. Good. And of course, common sense would tell you if we have to work on that quite a bit, then you're going to spend some time petting on her to help keep her very confident. I'll ask her to step out here. You can see she steps out first with the shoulder, so that stick is going to come up there and block. Send the hindquarters, not the shoulder. There. And there we get more of, it would look or feel a little bit more like a leg yield as she goes out there, initiating that circle through the hindquarters. Now I would play around quite a bit with my transitions here. You notice how she wants to go around here, pretty much stretching and reaching through the top line. We've used this wand with her a few times. She was the kind of horse that would go around pretty stuck, pretty braced, and quite a bit counter-flexed. And that's something that you see quite a bit with a lot of our horses in their foundation work. You see it quite a bit even with horses that are a little farther along. In their lunging, they might be going around to the right, but they're bending to the left. So you see how I kind of hop down the stick right here, and I might tickle her belly a little bit. There. And you see that creates a bit more of a bend in the body. I'm going to block a little bit with the line here to say don't go so fast. Or I could come up here and say don't go so fast there, step under more here. Don't go so fast there, step under more here. If your horse is going around on the lunge and they're counter bending, they're working their muscles inappropriately. If he's on a circle left, he should be bending left. If he's on a circle left, but he's bending right, he's balancing on the wrong diagonal pair of legs. Essentially, if you think about it, as the horse goes around, the inside hind leg is the driver, the inside to the bend. If she's going around on this right circle, she should be bent right, and then it's the right hind leg that's driving. If she starts to bend to the left, then it's the opposite hind leg that's going to be driving. And basically, I'm just teaching her to brace against me in that moment. So now when I want a downward transition, I might give her an audible signal. If you want to tell your horse to walk, you might say walk. You might you might let an exhale out. You might make some sort of verbal signal here. We're going to say, and then I bring that to the front there. Now, that's pretty common with a lot of horses. When you go to block there, they're going to turn to come in and face. So I send her back out, and I'll ask for the transition again. There. And as she goes there, I'm ready to redirect the shoulder. Good. And in this case, I don't have to be pulling on her head. I don't have to be banging on her head. I don't have to be chasing her to disengage a hindquarters with a stick or a whip or anything like that. I can just say, hey, that front door is closed. We'll ask her up again. And I like this because I can be more specific. I can reach out and touch her where I need to touch her. If I want to bring her up to canter, I can touch that outside hind leg specifically just before, atta girl, just before it steps forward. From trot to canter, the outside hind leg is the only leg that changes its job. So with this wand, I can reach out and talk specifically to it. Again, if I want to come down to trot, there. You see how I'm prepared with the wand to help if I need to. Good. Nicer transition there. And I don't mind if they want to play around a little bit like she was doing there. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to come to another downward transition. I'll be prepared to block if I need to. There. Now we'll come down to walk. There. So it's pretty basic the way that this stick works in helping our horse to understand kind of the barriers and the limits. Now, there's a couple ways that I could change direction on with her here if I wanted to. I could ask her to stop out there on the circle, trying to stop straight, again, promoting further balance. Good. She's not a pro at this, and that's why we pulled her out, so that you could see a horse that isn't quite finished, so to speak, in this work. So I could ask her to stop that way, and then I could come up to the front of her and send her off the other direction. Another way that I would ask her to go is by, as she's walking, draw her in and ask her to change directions again through the new inside hind leg. So I'll start off here showing you that first way. Again, I'm going to come out here now for this, what would be the new inside hind leg. And you see how she initiated first through that shoulder. I want to say, no, step through there, the hind quarters. I'll ask her to go out there. Now I'm going to change directions the other way as well so you can see how that would work. So as she's going around at the walk, I'm going to drift backwards. When she's coming in facing to me, I'm going to send now, there, the new inside hind leg out, driving her essentially from the hind leg. We'll come back to a walk. I'm going to change directions again, keeping that hind leg driving underneath the body. And now the new inside hind leg, that white hind leg, you'll see me try to send it there underneath the body as we go. As she went there, she kind of changed a little bit of bend on me. I say, no, you've got to yield that rib cage as you go through. There. I want to think about connecting the whole horse when I do this. I don't want to just think, okay, now we're just moving the shoulders of the horse out, and the rest of the body just lags behind. Think about how you'd be making this circle if you were riding. You would want the rib cage yielding. You would want the hind legs driving. You would want the outside shoulder being supportive of the balance. So this wand, with the length that it is, if I come up here in front of the nose, it can almost act like an outside rein, somewhat blocking that shoulder. That's an exaggeration there, so you can see. Somewhat blocking the outside shoulder, and you see how much more that hind leg then steps underneath her. I'll block here, send the hind leg, block the shoulder, send the hind leg, block the shoulder, send the hind leg, but block the shoulder. There, and you see in that moment right there, she coordinated the body better together as she went around. Now, a question that I get asked a lot of times is, which hand is the best one to hold this in as we're going around? If I'm working a lot with sending the hindquarters, I might be holding it in the kind of the normal hand, right? The hindquarter hand. We have the head hand and the hindquarter hand. Sometimes, though, I find if I'm working with a horse's balance, it's easier for me to hold it on top here. And that's just for me, or hold it in the front hand here. I don't know that I'd yet say that one way is right and one way is wrong. I think a lot of it's going to depend on your coordination. If you're up here, though, you could be blocking your horse's forward energy. So that's something to think about. If I've got a horse that's lacking in energy, I don't want to be up here with the whip in the head hand, so to speak, blocking that energy very much. And you see, even Bunny here decided to stop just with me talking and having it in this position. Back here, a little bit more of a driving position. You can go on forward. A little bit more of a driving position. So particularly if you've got a horse that's maybe not very forward, or maybe is really fresh and needs a little more forward, or needs to be allowed more forward, we might bring that hand or bring that wand into this driving hand. Now I'm going to ask again for a change of direction, this time at the trot. I'm going to try to get that hind leg stepping under the body, drawing the nose. We lost the trot. I don't mind that so much. There, sending her out around, too much shoulder. So you see how as she goes with too much shoulder, I come up there and block a little bit. Now when I say I don't mind that she broke down into the walk, coming into us at the trot like that specifically can be a bit of, say, maybe a confidence thing, something we haven't done a whole lot of. Maybe I need to drift a little more. There. Give me a little more bend. Less shoulder, better balance, more hindquarters. Keep the energy. Less shoulder, more hindquarters. Less shoulder. There, more hindquarters. There, and you see how we can direct each piece of her here to put the whole thing together in better balance. Gonna draw toward me again. See if I can send, there, that hind leg underneath of her. Good. Notice too that I don't let the tip of this touch the ground. That's something to try to avoid. As delicate as this tool is, it would be really easy for it to break if we were letting it touch the ground. Additionally, if you get dust and dirt on the length of it, that'll jam up the sleeves and it'll make it difficult to use. So again, this is a mare who typically can be quite bracy, and you can see when I make little adjustments, she gets right in the top line and a little bit braced. This has been a great tool for helping her to relax and release through the top line as she goes. You can see how much now she's wanting to stretch. That's not really naturally her to begin with. She was carrying a lot of tension, and this wand, just in a few sessions, helped her to reach and stretch more by thinking, there, about the balance as we go. Something to think about. I know quite a few of our viewers are dressage riders or English riders. Maybe they're thinking about using a surcingle and side reins on their horse. I would really recommend thinking about using this tool as a preparation for that. If you're going to use the side reins, I don't use them very often. I'd almost say that I never use them. But this is going to help your horse learn how to reach and stretch forward into a more relaxed frame as a preparation if you're going to be doing something like that. So that's a great way maybe to get started. Okay? So again, I feel like that's pretty good. I think you guys have got a pretty good idea of what we're doing here. I'm going to close it up, again holding the handle and coming back each link as we go. If I were working in an arena that was kind of sandy and dusty, I'd probably be wiping this off as I went to help to keep it clean and working smooth. So, gang, I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions about how to use this magic wand or about how to get your horse in a little better balance, a little better bend, as you're working on the lunge or in your groundwork, please feel free. Give us a comment in the comment section below the video here. Maybe send us an email, give us a phone call. We'd really appreciate that. And I'll include in the comment section here a link to where you can find one of these. It's been a great tool. I've been using it so much that I don't know what I ever did before I started using it, and I think you'll really enjoy using it as well. What do you think, Bunny? You think so? All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you soon.